Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending our today webinar session. I'm Irina Chismash. I'm head of marketing here at Castify, and I'm going to be your host for the following 1 hour almost. Together with me, I have our special guest, Ivan Celik from Customer Success Manager from User Guide. Ivan, thank you for accepting our invitation and being our guest today.
Always, thank you. I appreciate your invitation.
More than welcome. I want to also say hello to Kerry, Alanda, Amy, James, Kevin, Julie. Thank you all, many more who are already joining us. I suggest we wait a few more minutes until we start, and until then, we wanted to know where are you guys listening from. I'm in Bucharest. Ethan is in Istanbul. I'm curious to see where are you guys? Seattle. Hello from Bucharest. Hello, Delia.
Oh,
Ghana, Dublin. Woohoo! We are a
really
pretty international crew today.
Yeah, amazing.
While hello, Bill from Chicago. Hello, Parul from UK. Angel from North Carolina. Yash from Mumbai. Woo! Hi, everyone from Istanbul. You also have some. We have
Yeah,
our audience is from Istanbul. Hello everyone. I want to walk you through some housekeeping items. All the lines are muted for a better listening experience. This is hello Philip from Germany. This is a recorded event, and everyone who registered will gonna receive a recording link at the end of the webinar. We reserved 10-15 minutes for a Q&A session. Use the question tab bottom right of your device. And I think I'm also going to do a shameless promo because we have some bills to pay. So if you are curious to see how Castify can actually help you scale your customer success operations, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Drop us a line at cs@castify.com. We want to know which are your customer success challenges, and I know for sure that together we can help you overcome those. So get in touch with us. And while we wait for one more minute, Ethan, I want to give the audience the chance to get to know you better. So if you do not mind, I want to pass a challenge to you. Please share with us two things about yourself. One which is true, and the second one which is false. And myself included, and this lovely audience from everywhere in the world will try to guess which one is true.
Oh, yeah. It's really a great challenge, actually. I'm down for it. So, yeah, let's go. I'm
So,
a
so
one.
I say the following: you guys will tap one if Ethan. What's your first thing?
One. Yeah. I'm a gamer, and I actually love playing Warhammer 40K Space Marine.
Woohoo! Okay. Curious if we
And
have some other gamers. Okay, and the second one.
and the second is actually I have two dogs.
Okay, so let's type one if you think Ethan it's a gamer, and let's type two if you actually think Ethan has two dogs.
It's pretty mixed.
Okay, so it's pretty mixed. Let's give them another 30 seconds to actually vote, and then you can actually share.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is it actually? A gamer or a dog lover?
Yeah, to be honest, I have never been into games, so I'm a dog lover and I have two dogs.
Super,
Yeah.
super.
What about you, Irina? let's play this game with you also.
Okay, okay. If we are playing this game with me as well, then the first thing I would say that I started my, so type one, if you think I started in my career in web development, and type two, if you think I'm a cat lover. Okay, okay.
It's kind of balanced again, but somehow a
Yes.
lot of ones.
Yeah, so I think I think that my identity is revealed. Yeah, indeed. I started my career as a web developer, and it turned out with me working in marketing. But that's a story for another webinar episode. So you guys have to actually keep signing in and keep watching us. And at some point, I promise I'm gonna share it because it's an interesting one.
Great. Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's great to know that we are not a good liar after all.
yeah.
It's pretty balanced.
So, shall we actually kick off our conversation about onboarding myths?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I
I'm really
think
excited.
I'm gonna pass the mic to you, and we can deep dive into our presentation. In the meantime, hello Shakira, hello everyone. We are just diving into our main topic.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Again, yeah, I'm really excited to be with you today and talk about user onboarding and, of course, debunk some common myths together. Um, yeah, today I want to briefly talk about what user onboarding actually is and why it matters shortly so that we can actually establish a clear understanding together. As I talk about user onboarding, we'll see that it is pretty much linked with the further stages of the customer journey, especially the product adoption part. Then I'll bring a few common user onboarding myths, four to be exact, to the table and showcase some examples to demonstrate what can be done to actually tackle those myths as you build or improve your onboarding processes. Then I'll briefly mention ways to go while validating the success of an onboarding process with a real life example from our company, User Guiding. However, yeah, before jumping into the actual content, let me give an introduction for myself. My name is Efan Çelik, and I'm the Customer Success Manager at User Guiding. In fact, I am a civil engineer by education, which is a completely different domain from what I currently do. However, as I got into the startup ecosystem and started to work at User Guiding, which is a B2B SaaS platform, I realized that I feel much better working in an industry where everything is fast-paced and open to experiments, unlike construction industry, which requires time-consuming and complex operations. And as Irina mentioned, I am based in Istanbul, Turkey.
Funny enough, our audience is speaking today with an ex-developer and an ex-civil engineer. I actually dropped the developer path because the bugs were actually chasing me overnight. They were my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I could relate actually. Yeah, the civil engineer part is the same. It's always about the sites and everything. I really love my work right now.
Same here.
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I am the customer success manager at User Guiding, which is basically a digital adoption solution where you can create in-app experiences to reach business goals such as increasing trial conversions or improving new feature and product adoption rates and so on. Here, I wanted to just sprinkle some tangible benefits that we help our customers to reach during their subscription. And as you might guess, to help them reach their goals, we had to have a well-functioning onboarding process. So, which gets us to our main topic: what is user onboarding and why is it important? However, yeah, before we enter this part, I want to hear more about your organization's alignment on user onboarding. So we have a quick survey where we'll ask if you have a company-wide definition for your onboarding processes. Just take your time and we can move forward.
We have a few votes.
Mm-hmm.
There are
It's mostly yes.
mainly yes. So it's, I would say 60, 56. Let's give it a few more. Let's give it a few more seconds.
Yep.
It's a very interesting distribution. I would say.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, mostly yes, but also we are seeing some not sures around.
Let's hope that until the end of this presentation, we will gonna change some of those no and not sure. We're gonna something to think about, and it will be on a more like a we should do something on this.
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's a 63 on yes, 21 on not sure, and no 17%.
Yeah, it's really great and interesting distribution as you mentioned. So yeah, let's just dive right into the onboarding definition. You know, you can find many definitions, many different ones for this highly important term. Definitions that revolve around value points, key actions, aha moments, educating users, and so on. However, in my opinion, Samuel Hulick, who is the founder of useronboard.com, he really puts the very straightforward and very effective definition for user onboarding, where he says basically user onboarding is a process where you improve the chances that users will be successful when adopting your product. So user onboarding actually matters because it is a key milestone where a good user experience may flourish. It's also your time to help users understand how your product can support them by providing constant value throughout their journey. And also, it can result in improved retention, customer satisfaction, and upsell opportunities if well planned and implemented. As I mentioned, with a well-planned and executed user onboarding process, we aim to have the highest chances possible to make users stick around. We see that 86% of consumers will actually pay more for a better customer experience. This means that although you have a competitive product with a price advantage, the chances are high that you'll lose your lease to a competitor with a better customer experience. Or even if those users stick around for a while, it is possible that you might encounter churns caused by poor onboarding. So, what is essentially needed for a good user onboarding experience in the most simplistic way? In my opinion, there's no other way than to explain it with fork behavior model because it fits the user onboarding case perfectly. It suggests that for the desired action to be taken, there needs to be enough motivation, ability, and also correct trigger in place. For users to turn, found value into habitual behavior, they need to go above the action line in the graph. And naturally, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screens, a user onboarding process that teaches users with long, overwhelming tutorials, or most of you might know them as the tooltip tours, which just explains how your tool actually functions, is located below the action line. That is because mainly it interrupts the user experience and harms the ability. And also the fact that it is bothering users with too much irrelevant information actually demotivates them in the end of the day. So, in my opinion, it is not a good idea to focus too much on the UI elements, spend too much time, and force users into a long onboarding flow. On the other hand, at the right-hand side, we see that interactive content that guides users to their own goals at their own time is actually placed above the action line. Of course, it is vital not to leave users on their own while they are dealing with your product or starting to understand how it can actually help. But it is also important to not be with them all the time. So it is a good idea to focus on what users desire to do instead of cool features and their capabilities. Onboarding at the end of the day needs to be contextual and it should speak to the user's desired outcomes. However, although we know all these, or at least heard about the best practices, good onboarding is actually still not the norm. 97% of companies say a good user onboarding is necessary for a product's growth. However, almost 60% of those say they are not satisfied with their current user onboarding experience for their product. There might be many different reasons for that, but I believe the most prominent one is that we need to understand and debunk some myths about user onboarding that actually hinders us from planning and designing a good user onboarding experience, which we, fall to its traps, basically. So before, losing so much time, I want to just jump into the first myth, which is onboarding starts when the user starts using the application, or onboarding starts when the user signs up for your product. This is, of course, a general misconception. However, it is really, really hard to pinpoint when exactly an onboarding process begins and ends. And actually, this is the sole reason why all touch points with your users, your potential customers, should be treated like your first and the last. Because, if we can't show the value of the product from the very start, how can we guarantee that they will see the next step in the customer's journey, right? So I want to just reinforce this idea with a few good examples that demonstrate value even before the sign-up processes, so that it can sparkle some ideas in your mind about, how you can review your onboarding processes right now. The first one actually comes from Grammarly. I believe most of us saw this advertisement of them at least once around 2017, especially on YouTube. To be honest, this tool is one of the indispensables among my tech stack as a CSM. And this example actually demonstrates a good value proposition from the very beginning, as early as the first touch point with the potential customers. And it is good because you can relate with the ad, because you see, professionals dealing with day-to-day communications, and it's also showing how it can add value to your communications with your colleagues or your partners. Another way of demonstrating value by, speaking potential customers' language can be seen in this example from Bubble's landing page. For those of you who might not know, Bubble is a no-code tool that lets you build SaaS platforms, marketplaces, and CRMs without any need of coding, as I mentioned. And their landing page generates a sense of, curiosity among potential users on how the tool can actually help without even signing up. So it is a good example of an interactive onboarding without a need of sign up and actually, being inside the tool. And actually the third example is again an interactive example, which comes from Genially, an online tool that enables users to create fun and interactive content without the need of signing up. Again, Genially provides an opportunity to try out the tool in an almost eccentric and fun way with great user experience. So I would suggest focusing on each and every moment that your users encounter and interact with your brand while building on an onboarding experience under the light of, these three examples.
Based on what you are saying, Ethan, it feels like the onboarding is not a solo game. Is more like a sport team. So my question to you would be: how do you create an environment where everyone, and that means marketing, sales, product, customer success, support, is actually aligned around the onboarding definition?
Actually, Irina, yeah, that's a really great question, and yeah, I want to mention it through my slides. To be honest, in the second myth, because I'm just touching that point where the general misbelief or general misconception that customer success team is the only responsible team for user onboarding. As you mentioned, onboarding should be considered as a team sport, and it requires a well-established company-wide definition of customer success and strategy. That is why, All teams should focus their efforts around that definition to overcome different expectations which may cause a value gap in the eyes of your potential users or potential customers. By value gap, I mean the difference between the promised value, before the actual processes, before signing up or after signing up, and the actual value the users are getting from your platform as they are getting used to it. So, since you have asked, I want to just share user guidance case as an example to just, make it more solid. In our case, we do not have a very well established, official onboarding team, but all the teams in user guiding actually have a certain responsibility around the onboarding team support. In our case, the product team actually creates, manages, and also constantly iterates the in-app onboarding experience for our end users under the light of the customers' feedback and their behaviors. For example, once a user signs up, they get to customize the appearance of the content that they will create with our no-code tool, which is a point where they realize some value via personalization. Right after this step, we welcome users to their user guiding panel and just let them know that the steps that they can take is available within our onboarding checklist, just in case they need at their own time, as I mentioned. Since the product team is the team that knows the actual product the best, they have the responsibility to prompt users where appropriate inside the application. Now let's jump into the marketing team, which is your domain. In user guiding, marketing team actually initiates the onboarding process with advertisements, landing page, and also setting the tone of our brand in the eyes of our users. They run email campaigns after sign up to demonstrate value outside the product with clear call to actions, of course, so that users consider to come back to the product and take the key actions that allow them to eventually stick around. Of course, personalization is an important aspect of onboarding, just like a careful approach to avoid interrupting the user experience. That is why our sales team approaches to our users who are trying out the tool to see if it is a fit through in-app slide outs or on-demand demo booking module within user guiding's very own resource center. So as you can see in the slide out on the left-hand side, we are just, letting them know that we are there with a, clear pain point of the target persona, which is, boosting or increasing product adoption. With the difficulties of coding, we just say you need to code. You don't need to code, but we are always here to help you, just in case you need, or you can just play around with the tool. Lastly, as customer success teams, it is natural for us to have the most insight on user behaviors, desires and pain points. We are, of course, the customer-facing part of the onboarding team, and this actually requires us to constantly improve the company-wide definition of product user fit. While we can run quantitative analysis to assess the performance of the onboarding process, we also have the option to run qualitative research and get users' feedback on how they are onboarded and get to learn more about the friction points so that we can eliminate them. Here you see an example of our in-app survey where we ask our users how their implementation period passed and which areas they actually required the most help. Of course, while asking for those information, since this is again a touch point with the user, it is important to still provide value. So we just let them know that we are available for project assessment meetings to share our insights based on what they did up to now and the outcomes that they actually got, comparing them with the previously agreed goals that they have set in the beginning of their journey. These meetings are, in my opinion, extremely beneficial for demonstrating the value that they desired back to the customer, which is unfortunately an often overlooked stage of user onboarding. So this is our case in user guiding. I'm really wondering about how Castify handles the interdepartmental aspect of user onboarding?
So yeah, in the case of Castify, onboarding is in the center of everything that we do as a team, because in the end we are a customer success platform. So as you mentioned, it starts way before. It starts actually with marketing, with my team, by making sure that we are targeting the right people with the right message on the right channels with the right frequency. And then it continues with the sales team, who is actually making sure from the very first interactions with our potential customers, and they are just making sure that we are the right fit for them, because in some cases we are not the right fit, and they aren't actually afraid to say no or to recommend other solutions if that works best for them. And our customer success team actually comes into this journey earlier, and the handover process between sales and customer success, it's actually smooth for our customers. And the mission our CS team has is to actually understand what is the main reason why they wanted to use a customer success platform, what are their main objectives, what are their business goals. And having this in mind, they are actually, so this is top of mind every from the moment they are first interacting with a potential customer, and they are using this information on their initial onboarding and implementation calls, and also later on in the adoption phase, because they are making sure that our customers are using and adopting the product in a way in which it actually serves their business objectives. Because in the end, if you are just using a tool and you are somehow adopting it, but you don't move the needle on the business side, at some point you're going to churn. So this is what we call a successful onboarding definition. Actually, in the moment that the user reached his business goals, the one which they actually had when they said, maybe Castify can actually help us.
Exactly. Like just like you mentioned, I think the key point there is the setting the desired goal and outcome before starting the project, whatever it is. And in this case, in user onboarding, it's the same thing. And as you mentioned, also, it doesn't have to be a low touch or a high touch. It can just be a mix of everything. So yeah, I think it's really valuable to hear about the Castify's aspect as well. Thanks. Yeah, and the third myth that I want to mention is again the misconception that onboarding is a process to teach users how to use the features. So focusing on just the capabilities of your product and setting an almost teaching tone to the customers often won't work, since they come to your product to reach their desired goals and outcomes, as you mentioned. That is why instead of the features, the tone should be set to revolve around the benefits that they will actually get by understanding how your users can actually help them, how your product can actually help them. Sorry. When thinking about benefits and the desired outcomes, I would, suggest working on designating or determining different use cases that your product offers, and of course, the linked user personas to those use cases. Actually, Canva provides a perfectly smooth example for that. When you first sign up to the product, it provides different paths that comes with short and really concise value proposition that is strongly linked with the reason why that user type uses Canva. Gathering this information, in my opinion, helps Canva in two different ways. One, obviously they provide a personalized experience to their end users, and this gives the sense of being cared about the platform. And the second is they are continuously feeding the use case and personal research that they are always conducting, so that they can strengthen the aspects of the hypothesis that they have put forward. Another example is coming from Wattpad. Actually, it's a similar example to Canvas, but a much more simpler one. In the sign-up segmentation model, we see that there are just three distinct user paths, and if a user selects one, they will be just experiencing the desired experience, and also they will be recommended with the related resources. And it also gives the sense of being given the right direction to the users, which is a great thing in means of experience.
One comment here, even if this is something that it cannot be, if this is something that it cannot be accommodated into the product, this can fall under the either sales and CS responsibilities, and they can actually help into this properly segmenting the user, making sure that they have a tailored onboarding experience. At least in our case, this falls under the CS.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it can be either in meeting interactions or emails and support interactions maybe, and also in in-app experiences, as you mentioned. The fourth and actually the last myth of our presentation is the common misbelief. Again, onboarding is something that you roll out once and then forget. In reality, onboarding is something that requires constant iteration because of two main reasons. One, your product is constantly evolving based on your customers' feedback and the market conditions. I want to open a small parenthesis here. If it's not following this path, actually, I would suggest reviewing that part too. And the second is the type of new users that you target evolve as time passes, basically. So onboarding, in my opinion, should be considered as a cyclical and never-ending process instead of a linear one, and since this is the case, we can't simply deem onboarding as completed once a user regularly uses the product. It can only imply that you might have a good onboarding process that is working, but we'll still need to deliver value during their entire journey. One approach can be interacting with the customers, as we mentioned before, via emails, calls, or inside the application based on the actions that they have taken. This way we might actually ease their way through more secure parts of your product. In this example, you see one of our lifecycle emails that we sent to the paying customers. We actually know that in user guiding, creating segments and curating personalized experiences for different types of end users is something that is favored by our users who utilizes the tool very effectively. Because it paves the way for better engagement with our product, as well as a better user experience for their product as well, because they are segmenting the experience, they are showing the correct content to the correct audience. So it's great. So that is why based on the previous actions that our users are getting, we outlined separate different paths during their journey, and as they take those actions, we actually feed them through various content so that they can just stick around with the product. Second example of this myth actually comes from Notion, which is an essential tool for our organization's knowledge management, as well as day-to-day tasks. Although as user guiding, we have the habit to use Notion every day. Getting to know more about the latest updates actually enables us to engage deeper with Notion. And this model that you see is a great user experience example in various ways, because it just informs you about the new feature that they have posted, but it also gives you the opportunity to skip all the steps so that you can just move forward with your day-to-day tasks with Notion. Or if you are more interested, you can just click on learn more and just learn more about it. Now that we covered a few of the most common user onboarding myths and seen some reasons why all onboarding experiences cannot be actually good onboarding experiences, we need to take a step back and understand why onboarding is directly linked with the customer success domain again. Again, I would love to hear from you guys. our audience on whether customer onboarding, whether customer onboarding is important for your organization or not. So I would be glad if you can just fill out the survey. It looks like user onboarding is very, very important for our audience as we expected, Irina, but it's great to clear our minds about it as we are getting votes.
I think in this case we have a clear winner.
Yeah. 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 We see that 94% says very important, and 6% actually says somewhat important, and the other ones are not being touched. So yeah, actually, one of the most common practices that I see in different companies is they generally focus on the very end of the funnel when dealing with churn, which is the silent killer of businesses, as we all know it. However, in my opinion, having this somehow like a firefighter approach will not work. Now, I'm not saying that the churn reasons and feedback of churned users should be ignored. Of course, they are highly vital. However, I can confidently say that the actions to fight churn should be taken not through the end of the customer journey, but at the right beginning while onboarding them. Right? Because good onboarding will actually result in less churn, higher retention, and higher customer success in the long run. According to Wiseall, 86% of people tend to become loyal customers of a company that actually provides a good user onboarding experience and invests in it, which, in my opinion, says a lot. Not only this aspect, not only the aspect of churn or retention, but good user onboarding actually increases the likelihood of feature adoption of your users. I wanted to point out a real life example from Indicata, which is a part of Otorola Group. Otorola Group is a car dealership platform operating in 13 different markets and 11 different languages. They used to have regional representatives that onboarded users via, one-on-one calls, meetings, which was very time consuming for them. After adopting user guiding and changing the way they onboard their customers and interact with them inside the application on top of their, best working practices, they saw not only a good user onboarding experience, but a 47% new feature adoption rate increase in only 1 week. So a good onboarding can actually affect many different metrics in your organization. I want to briefly mention the difference between success perception of users and the product itself when it comes to user onboarding before jumping into the validation process of how a good user onboarding is successful or not, with a user guiding example again. This is honestly an intertwined concept for our case because since our aim is to apply a consultative approach while onboarding our customers, at the same time, eventually one of the main use cases of user guiding is providing a well-functioning user onboarding experience for our users and users. That is why we had the opportunity to differentiate between the perception of success of end users and the platform itself. However, first things first, an organization's success should not be fully focused on improving business KPIs. They are highly important, but it should also be focused on the success definition of their end users again. CS operations can be deemed successful if the users reach to the desired goals and the outcomes that they have set before. By having this understanding, I want to jump right into the two sides of the coin with the users part and their understanding of onboarding success, of course. What is required for a user to consider themselves to be successfully onboarded to a product? The primary experience users are innately looking for in any product is the infamous word, aha moment, the embodiment of immediate value. Let's just give a simple definition. The aha moment is the point at which a user meets the proposed value of a product and perceives not only how it works, but also how it can add value to their lives. It is the consequence of your user's interaction with your product, whether before sign up, inside the application, or through email and support interactions, just like we mentioned in one of our myths. And the second thing the users are caring about is that they do not want to be lectured on, something they don't know. For example, a cool feature of your platform. Rather than that, they are willing to be introduced to new opportunities and new ways of doing things that will help them to reach their goals. So, as we mentioned before, instead of having set a teacher tone while interacting with them, you can do this and that, we need to talk more about the solutions they are looking for and how you can actually help them. Lastly, all the users eventually want to have a self-serving experience. They want to be independent in your product. So it is best to chase the frictions throughout their journey of the onboarding process and eventually, eliminate them through iteration. Meanwhile, at the other side of the coin, what we care about when a user first interacts with the product is that they find their aha moment quickly and have the best possible experience before and after it. We also, want to figure out a way of overseeing long-term success while implementing our onboarding processes. So we look for a pattern of success or failure. Here, if it fails, no worries. We look for ways to fix it. If it's successful, we try to preserve it. In any case, we need to have constant iteration and improvement within our processes. And for that, we need to pick the right metrics to track, which are, of course, pretty unique to each organization. So by mentioning the uniqueness of these, metric picking while validating the success, I want to point out how, actually we came up with our way of assessing the performance of our onboarding process as user guiding. So when our company was founded in 2018, we needed to come up with a structure to grow. We were at a small team and learning on the way. So we were always open to experiments, building hypotheses based on correlations, and of course, eventually challenging them to find actual causations as we are doing it now. So let's take a look at our previous approach to, give the idea, and I will just move forward to the next approach, which we adopted after this one. So the first one is the OMTM approach, which stands for one metric that matters, which we came up with inside our organization. OMTM basically stands for the code embed. So what I mean by this is to install user guiding, our users need to install a small JavaScript snippet, which we call container code, so that they can show the content they created with our tool to their end users. Once a user completes the installation, they are able to set their first guide live, which is one of the major aha moments for them, as we learned through user interviews and customer meetings in the early days. So we tracked OMTM, embedding the code, in two segments for 14-day free trial users and for subscribers. And once we came up with the aha moment of setting a guide live, we adopted a backwards thinking approach and came up with a few key actions that actually paves the way for this aha moment and eliminate the friction, which is very important. So these key actions in user guiding's case is signing up to user guiding, installing the extension, using the extension to create the guide, and or eventually completing the installation. As a result, with this approach, we saw a positive impact on our acquisition channels. However, at the same time, we also experienced a discrepancy in between teams regarding the customer success definition. Although, there is a positive correlation between this approach and the conversion rates back at the time, we figured out that our main goal should be actually to increase the chances for our users to adopt our product. While we achieve this, increased conversion rates can only be a byproduct of the process itself. So with this understanding, we move forward to the next approach, which is PQL Tracking, which stands for Product Qualified Lead. With this approach, we worked hard on designating, the target audience, the customer personas, the differences between them, so that we could come up with main user personas, their behaviors, and of course, their use cases. We involved all teams into this process, reviewed all the meeting notes with our customers or the users, which is very precious. And of course, on top of this qualitative analysis, our BI team analyzed their behavior quantitatively to support the hypothesis itself. Under the light of their analysis, we came up with this product qualified lead definition, which is, among all the actions that can be performed within our tool, creating a guide with at least one step had a strong correlation with conversion and, more importantly, a longer customer lifetime. This way, we came up with a company-wide success definition for our users. We reviewed all of our interactions with them. We reviewed all the touch points and focused on use cases and what is achievable, with user guiding instead of, again, focusing on the capabilities. We kept the onboarding checklist that I mentioned before, but, implemented a gamification approach to see if it affects activation and engagement. I think the most important part that I want to emphasize is that we constantly ask for feedback from our users at major milestones throughout their journey, whether they, became paying customers or not, because it is important for them to feel like they are being cared about, and at the same time, their complaints or their feedback is highly vital for our case. So this way, we saw a substantial improvement in our product's usage, engagement, as well as 25% increase in free trial to customer conversion in 6 months, on top of the decrease in churns and everything. So yeah, that would be our case in user guiding, and also the end of my presentation.
Thank you for sharing. I really liked the case study. And I'm sure that the 25% increase in the free to conversion had an impact also on the revenue side.
Yes, exactly.
I think we are now ready to take a few questions. I'm gonna start with so Carrie asked, will there be a recording shared? Yes, for sure. Everyone will receive a recording immediately after this event finishes. Again, the same thing was asked by Chris, and then we have a question from Luisa. What if we don't even have a process in place? Is it not too immature to get a tool when one wouldn't know where to start with using it?
Yeah, I wouldn't just decide on whether adopting a tool is being immature or not. But if you don't have a process in place for user onboarding, I would definitely, suggest you to, as I mentioned before, get in touch with your customers and learn more about how they are actually implementing your solution, especially the power users, as we call it, so that you can understand the patterns and pave the way for the newcomers with a new onboarding sequence. Within this part, you can use meeting one-on-one calls. As I mentioned, there's no true or false in high touch or low touch. But of course, adopting a tool inside the application or a tool like Castify really helps to, onboard your users a lot.
But I think Luisa has a very valid point. It's very important before, okay, picking any tool, it's very important to set up your own objectives, is to
Mhm.
decide what do you want to track, what's your definition, what are you actually gonna measure it, and then, okay, iterate on it. And you mentioned even that, yes, talking to customers and trying to iterate on its feedback, it's actually a very valid way, combining the quantitative with qualitative, because you can dig into the data, but what the data won't tell you is why did the user do what he did. So you can see that he is actually trying to do something, he's trying to use feature A in one way, but you don't understand the motivation behind it. And I think this combining the two will actually help you craft the onboarding definition, to help you iterate on your product strategy moving forward, and it will actually bring you closer to your audience.
Exactly. And I want to add, one more thing to that, uh, especially for small startups or small companies that have, for now, really small user base. For those, it is very important to interact with the customers. Of course, if you have thousands of users, thousands of customers, you might want to look for data and stuff. However, if you have the chance, just speak to the customers and have the success definition, have a proper onboarding definition from them, listen to their complaints, listen to the friction points, and then start implementing the onboarding.
And one more thing, I don't think you will have the pixel perfect definition from the very beginning. This is something that you definitely iterate on. You start with something and then you adjust, you modify. Don't be afraid to do this.
Exactly.
Hopefully we answered Luisa's question. And then we also have a question for Purvik. How is gamification important in user onboarding?
That's a great question, actually. Yeah. So in the nature of user onboarding, we see that, users come to your product for various reasons. They might just want to have the perfect product or perfect solution for them, or they are just looking for ways, or they are just randomly registered to your product. So they have limited time, to adopt your product. And gamification really helps you with that. They can just, if even if they don't find anything interactive or anything interesting with the gamification approach, of course the correct one, you can just make them stick around more for a while. And also it can impact, if they turn out to be a customer, it can really impact their way of engaging with your product if you consider to, extend the gamification approach to them. Of course, in user guiding, as I mentioned, we are testing the gamification approach on top of the onboarding checklist that I mentioned, which we really love. And yeah, we are still testing, we are still learning from it. And Puvik, I would be glad to, chat more about gamification if you'd like after the webinar also.
Ethan, I have a question here. Do you think that the gamification is something that is suitable for any type of product, or is
Um,
it something that any type of product can actually implement? Any SaaS can actually implement this type of
it's a
approach?
tough question, actually, Irina. I'm not really sure. I mean, what is your opinion about it? I'm not really sure.
I'm just thinking maybe the game. I'm just asking you if you saw this gamification only in product-led organization. Is gamification an approach or a route if you have very complicated I don't know, product or a B2B product or I don't know, sales led product maybe?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that it's about the way that you interact with your customers. If you think like the interaction can actually handle the gamification processes, it can actually help onboarding processes as well. However, it's a general concept. So uh, for all businesses to answer this question. It's a general concept. So I think we need to deep dive for each organization to understand whether gamification is valid for their case or not. And of course, testing, as I said, iterating and testing is always open. You can just test it if you feel like is suitable for your company.
Hopefully, Purvik, we did manage, Ethan did manage to answer your question. Feel free to add more in the meantime as a follow-up question or maybe something to actually help more on building up on what Luisa actually asked. How do you actually start creating an onboarding definition when you don't have one? How do you pull together? How do you start this process?
Yeah, it's again pretty well done. I think it's in parallel with Luisa's question, as you mentioned. So the thing is, again, I will give the same example, but actually, the first thing that you should do is to listen to your customers or your users, whether they become paying customers or not. So even especially the complaints, you have to listen to them because you have a live product, but you don't have an onboarding process. You'll just give it a go. It's open for testing, and after that, you can just listen to them, learn about friction points, learn about how actually the proficient users handled their friction points and their way through your product, and then you can just come up with a prototype and then constantly iterate that to have the best possible user onboarding experience. Of course, this is valid for companies that have huge customer base or lower customer base, but especially for huge customer base companies, I would also suggest to take a deep dive into the actions of their users inside the product. Take a look at the product adoption or engagement rates so that understand that which actions actually lead to a more healthy customer relationship and more longer customer lifetime. That would be my answer.
Thank you. While there are no more questions, while I suggest we give it 1 or 2 more minutes, and while we wait for other questions, I'll go again, remind you all that we would really like to stay in touch, and don't hesitate to drop us a line for onboarding questions, for customer success questions. We are here. Just get in touch, and we'll really want to know more about your day-to-day challenges and how can we actually help. Let us know how can we help. If you're welcome, Purvik. If there are no more other questions, thank you, Gabriel, as well. Thank you, Delia. Thank you, Philip. Thank you all for joining us. As I said earlier, a recording of this event will be shared to everyone, and I really enjoyed having this conversation with Ethan. And for the rest of our audience, I would like to say have an awesome day and see you in August at our next webinar session. We will gonna announce the theme pretty soon. Keep in touch. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.